All right. What's up, everyone? It's Wednesday night. It's like roasting outside, and that means it's time for another episode of Jawing and Balling. We do have a trio on tonight. Well, duo and a half. I don't think she's ready for the big screen yet. I think Dad and I are gonna try to work her up there. But you have myself on as always, and then of course we have Joe. And Joe, I will let you introduce the lovely person that is with you.
Well, this lovely lady right here is the biggest reason why I do this because I need to get away from her. No, I'm kidding. This is my daughter, Emily. She wanted to watch us tonight. And instead of sitting in the background, she is right next to me to hear all of our terrible discussions about topics that she has no idea about. But we're still here. She's laughing if you can't tell. So thank you, Tony, for having me on. We're hoping for our third member to hop on here soon. He's MIA as of right now, but that's okay because you and I can carry the show for now. Exactly. And I got her whispering in my ear, so thank God. And don't like forget about the cat. That's right.
I can't forget Tig. He's one of my three. I have Tigger, I have Braun, and I have Peach. Peach is actually next to me. She's kind of like Emma. She doesn't really do the camera. Tig is all about the camera. Peach, not nearly as much. Now, Emma, I do have to ask you something though. Whenever we say something, you have to tell us if it's fact or cap. Okay? Can you do that? No? You don't want to do that? All right, fair. All right. So we're going to jump into the first topic, which I think is kind of our biggest topic. And I always like having these discussions with Joe because Joe and I usually are able to banter back and forth with each other pretty well. And we're going to rank Lamar Jackson amongst the rest of his fellow quarterbacks. And my biggest question out of this is who is better, Lamar or the guy up north that wears number 12 that's in green and yellow? So, Joe, obviously, I will let you go first for this topic.
Well, first of all, that's a nickel in the jar. So, I mean, when you just actually, there should be two nickels in the jar because when you create a topic, bringing his name into it, you get double nickeled. Aside from that, I'm going to give you just a quick rundown. You and I were talking before the show. My co-host and I last year, we did basically stock prices for NFL quarterbacks going into the season. And we were kind of ranking. And what it ended up being is where we thought the quarterbacks going into the season were. Going into the season, we had Lamar Jackson as the 6th highest rated quarterback, which I thought was fair. You know, he was a little bit of a drop off behind guys like Josh Allen, Russell Wilson, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers that we're going to speak on. He was ahead of guys like Dak Prescott, Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray. The gap has closed on some of that because last year Lamar only played in 12 games. Part of that was COVID, part of that was injuries. He didn't have a great year. He threw 16 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, only had an 87 quarterback rating. So he was obviously far below his numbers, far below his MVP numbers. Now, coming into this season, I like the team that they've put around him. We did have a tragic passing in the NFL. His name is escaping right now. A Ravens linebacker, 26 years old, who died. So it that's tragic as a team aspect. But like they have a good team around them.
Jalen Ferguson, sorry.
Thank you. Jalen Ferguson, yes, was the player. I think 3 years in the league is what he was, I think, coming into his 4th. So obviously a tragedy for Baltimore and the NFL community at large. But I mean, yeah, John, take Lamar run, why is he still in the discussion? Because he can throw the ball. The problem is they haven't done a good enough job of getting him wide receivers. Basically what they've done with him is they look how every other team throws the ball, and they're like, well, we can use those wide receivers in the same way. The problem is Baltimore's passing game has never been like that. They just have, even with Joe Flacco, it was a special kind of wide receiver. Anquan Bolden was no longer an outside receiver. He was a big slot receiver. He was essentially a tight end who was a wide receiver. Even Steve Smith Jr. was doing some of the same things he did in Carolina, but he was older, so it was a different kind of game. They bring in Sammy Watkins last year. He doesn't work out. Part of that is, Lamar and him just not connecting. But Marquise Brown, Lamar Jackson needs, as we've seen, who catches the ball the best? The tight end. You need big-bodied receivers who can go fight for the ball. He's got a cannon of an arm. Let's not forget, the year that he won the MVP, he led the league in passing touchdowns. He's not just a running quarterback who throws the ball 10 times a game. He can throw the ball, and ideally that offense functions better when he throws the ball. Now, before I give you the floor, let me compare him to Aaron Rodgers. I know your disdain of Aaron Rodgers as a person and as a football player. My opinion personally, I'm done with the guy. I don't care who he's married to. I don't care what hookah medicine he wants to use. I don't care whatever. I'm done with him as a person. As a quarterback, he's the 2-time defending league MVP, the 3-time overall league MVP. You can't take that away from him. Again, we can get into the playoff discussion. We can get into the Super Bowl discussion. Those are all fair points. But if you're talking about just talent and ability on the field, Lamar Jackson deserves to be in not the same conversation, but the back part of that conversation. Would you compare him to Josh Allen? Yes and no. He's do you know what he is? He's a skinnier Cam Newton when he was younger. Cam has a really explosive arm. Cam could do stuff. If you basically took 40 pounds off Cam Newton, you have Lamar Jackson. That's what you have. Cam Newton won an MVP and took a team to the Super Bowl. Lamar Jackson won a league MVP. The difference is for both of these guys is will their offenses evolve and allow them to have a fundamentally consistent passing game, which is something that we didn't see in Cam Newton for most, if not all of his career. And to this point, aside from his MVP season, we haven't seen with Lamar Jackson.
Yeah. So I will touch on John's comment real quick of would we compare him to Josh Allen? Yes and no. Josh is very similar because, a lot of people don't realize how much Josh actually runs the ball. And we saw it a lot last year when he couldn't throw the ball. He was running, and he'd run extremely well, a lot like Lamar would. There is a difference between Josh and Lamar, though. Josh now has a true number one. Now, much like Lamar, he doesn't have a true running game. He has a great offensive line that has now been retooled. He almost always has a consistently good defense, and he basically has a wide receiver core of guys by committee, just like Lamar does. Now, again, the only difference is he has a number one in Stephon Diggs. Now, Lamar compared to Aaron. Now, like Joe said, I don't know why I have a disdain for Aaron. I like Aaron.
You don't.
If you can't tell, Emma, I'm a terrible liar a lot of times. I'm just awful. I can't do it. So here, and the reason why I even brought this up, because this isn't like this was something that was recently brought up in the news or anything like that. Mm-hmm. And Pride also says hi to you, Emma. Pride is very cool. He's a casual fan. He's now bald because he lost a bet. So, but he's still a really good guy, though. I also speak Spanish better than him, which is weird because if you look at me, you wouldn't think I'd speak Spanish better than him. But so Lamar versus Aaron. And the reason why I bring this up is because this was actually a topic that I had brought up that came up on the last night show that we did. And everybody kind of crucified me because I said that Lamar is better. And for everybody wondering why, here's the reason. Everybody talks about how Lamar doesn't throw the ball, how mainly he focuses on his run game because that is his strength. But like Joe said, you look at their wide receivers and what is their wide receiver core consistent of? You had Hollywood Brown, supposed to be the speedster on the outside that's supposed to be able to catch the deep ball. How many times did we watch Hollywood Brown drop just open passes? Now, I'm not going to blame all of them on him because some of those were just overthrown balls. Wide receivers can only compensate for that so much. They can only run so fast. Like that. Like that's fair. Mm-hmm. Sammy Watkins. We've seen Sammy Watkins travel everywhere. He's with the Bills. He was with the Rams. He was with the Chiefs. Chiefs has probably been his most productive time. Then he came to the Ravens, again, expecting, okay, now my career's been revitalized, not that he's taking advantage of. You have Tyreek Hill, Nicole Hardman, Byron Pringle, and Travis Kelce. Oh, and by the way, you have Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid as your quarterback and your head coach. So he's coming into it as I'm going to be the number one here when you're not really the number one.
Yeah.
So if we look at Lamar, he doesn't have a wide receiver that he can trust. He doesn't have a running game either. It's a running back by committee. He has a solid offensive line that they've rebuilt. He has a number one tight end. They almost always have a good defense. For the most part, though, the defense is aged. Now, this is why I say he's better than Aaron. What has Aaron almost always had all the way up until this year? he has had at least one solid wide receiver every single year, if not 2 or 3. And he makes the ones that he, doesn't have work to the best of his ability. Ergo, you went 13-3, 13-4 last year for the last 3 seasons. You also have a significantly better defense, which your first few years after you won the Super Bowl, that was your Achilles heel. You didn't have a defense, you don't have a run game, and that's it. Now, Aaron has a run game. He has a defense. You just don't have anybody to throw it to. Lamar has been able to not have anybody to really throw it to, and he's taken his team to the playoffs, and he's managed to win without it. Aaron, you can go 13-3, you can wipe everybody in the league, yet you choke when it matters. And why? And again, that's why, like, everybody tries to make it out like, oh, Green Bay has done nothing for Aaron. Yes, they have. No, they have not gone out and spent a crap ton of money on free agents. How many times have we ever seen people go out and spend a ton of money on free agents, and it pays off in the long run? It might work out for that first year. Now, that first year, look at Green Bay's defense. That first year worked out great. How's their defense looked the last couple of years? Terrible.
It's come back some, yeah. I mean, they still have a good defense, but it's come back some, yeah.
But what if a lot of those players been, though, that has kind of helped bring that defense back? It's been players that they've drafted. It's not players that they've gone out and bought. It's players that they had to, draft and home grow. And he finally has a running game. He has like 3 running backs that can run the ball now. So
I do want to defend Lamar a little bit here because I want to read you the wide receivers they currently have on their depth chart. We have Rashad Bateman, Tylan Wallace, Slade Bolden, Makai Polk, Devin Duvernay, who's a return specialist but hasn't shown much of his wide receiver, Jalen Moore, Shamar Bridges, Rayleigh Webb, James Proche II, Benjamin Victor, Trevin Clark, and Devin Williams. I mean, cool. And young guys that need to learn, and some of those guys are going to flash, and they're going to be great. But let's not pretend that Lamar Jackson has ever been given an offensive system under Greg Roman, the Colin Kaepernick system, that allows him to evolve as a passer, that allows him to go through his reads, go through his checkdowns, running backs out of the backfield. This is not an Andy Reid West Coast system. It is not a Tom Brady system. It is not an Aaron Rodgers system where Aaron Jones caught, I think 2 years ago, almost 100 balls, or last year almost 100 balls. Like, I mean, it's not that system. That's basically what Mark Andrews is for. So it's really frustrating. Again, I'm not a huge Lamar guy, but it's really frustrating when people just dismiss his talents. He can still be an above average playoff caliber quarterback. And in the right situation, he can clearly be a league MVP.
And I'll say this too, to not only defend Lamar, but also bash Aaron at the same time. It's my specialty.
Shocking.
Right? For the last few years, with the exception of the Browns and the Bengals, who have the Ravens always had to contend with in just the AFC North? The Steelers.
I mean, Pittsburgh, yeah.
In the last couple of years, obviously, you've had Cleveland, you've had Cincinnati start to come up and be a little bit more pain. And they're in the AFC. Way more talented, way more pain in the butt people. Because you have Patrick Mahomes, you have Josh Allen, you have better quarterbacks. Now you have Justin Herbert you have to deal with. Who has Aaron really had to deal with in the NFC? You have a crappy NFC North division that has been bad the entire time. Like, your division's bad when the only quarterback that has had any type of success against Aaron, and he's like 500 against him, is Kirk Cousins and the Minnesota Vikings. That's it. Detroit's been hot garbage, like they always are. The Bears, unfortunately, have been garbage, like they have been for a long time. And the Vikings have been mediocre, like they have been for a long time. So it's not like Aaron has had to struggle within his own division. And then you look outside the NFC. Who has he really had to deal with? The Saints with Drew Brees at the end. Okay. You Russell Wilson and the Seahawks. Okay. You have Russ and the Legion of Boom is gone. Russ has no offensive line, so he's having to run for his life. You have Jimmy G and the 49ers. Now, they own Aaron. Like, they can literally ask Aaron, who's your daddy? And he has to say them. Like, he has no choice. And that's it. Okay, and Tampa Bay and Tom, but that's only been for the last 2 years. Like, who do you really have to face in the NFC? Like, nobody.
I think the AFC in the time of Lamar and Aaron, if you want to overlap their times, I think the AFC has more consistent good teams, where the NFC has higher ceiling good teams. Like when Tom Brady went to Tampa Bay, they instantly became a Super Bowl contender. When Kyler Murray went to Arizona, we assumed, once he got out of the first year, they were going to be a playoff team. When Matt Stafford goes to the Rams, they're a Super Bowl team. So I do think the NFC has some high-level caliber talent. Even the Cowboys a few years ago being the number 1 seed, things of that sort. I mean, I think that there's that. I think in the AFC, like you said, with Pittsburgh, with New England, with the Chiefs, in this period of time, there has been longer sustained teams that are good or excellent. So it's a little unfair. But again, I just – like right now, I'm going to read you through some quarterbacks. Say yes or no if you take him over Lamar real quick. Patrick Mahomes. Yes. Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Russell Wilson. Yes.
No to the first, yes to the second, yes to the third.
Okay. Josh Allen.
Actually, no. I wouldn't take Josh Allen over Lamar.
Dak Prescott.
I would take Lamar.
Kyler Murray.
Lamar.
Justin Herbert.
I would take Justin.
Okay. 2 more. Derek Carr.
I would take Lamar.
Okay. And Joe Burrow.
Ooh. I'm gonna take Lamar. And the reason why I say that is because Joe struggled his first year as his rookie year, which he's expected to. He kind of took off last year. This coming year will kind of be a little bit more of a definitive for me if Joe really is like a top 10 quarterback. I believe he is, but I'm one of those, the rookie year kind of doesn't count because you're learning how to be a pro. People are going to have studied you. Second year, you kind of get a little bit more, in established. But now that Joe Burrow has this higher spotlight on him and more national attention, some of that may or may not potentially decrease. So at the moment, I'm going to say Lamar because, again, Lamar has been established for longer just purely because he's been in the league longer.
And the only 2 quarterbacks I have that I didn't name real quick, Matt Stafford, I think a lot of people would put him over Lamar right now, and Kirk Cousins, who, depending on your opinion, you could argue consistent-wise has been, maybe better than Lamar, but his ceiling isn't as high. But even with that, Tony, you're still ranking Lamar Jackson as a top 10 quarterback, which I think is the problem when people get in this discussion, is you're arguing over not 1 through 5, you're arguing more like 6 through 12. And if he falls into that 6 through 12 category, I think that's perfectly fine. That is a playoff quarterback. That is a division-winning quarterback more often than not. And I think right now that's perfectly fine. He's not 30. Like, he's really young still. Like, he's got time.
He's not like your dad, Emma. Your dad, oof, your man's getting up there. Am I right?
Yeah, she likes to call me old man.
See, I see the nod. She knows what's up. She knows.
You can smile. It's okay.
Anyway, we'll move on. So this is probably going to be I think this is probably a first, or at least for me, it's a first on this show. We're going to talk about some wrestling. And the biggest thing we need to talk about is the fact that Vince McMahon is on this, going away tour for the WWE, appearing on SmackDown, on Raw. It wouldn't have surprised me if he appears on NXT eventually, just because I don't think he will. He don't really have much to do with NXT. But, he's appearing on all these shows just being like, oh, welcome to the show. This is what we need to do, et cetera, et cetera. Do you think this is the end of us seeing Vince on TV amidst this huge allegation of, basically using a former employee, paying her for favors, as we'll call them, because there's a child in the room, excluding myself. And, the fact that he's been told and he's stepped down as CEO and Stephanie is now the interim CEO. Is this the end of us seeing Vince McMahon on TV?
I'm going to answer your question, and I'm also going to open Pandora's box. It should be. Yes, it absolutely should be. Due to his age, due to the allegations, due to all of that stuff. I'm not into professional wrestling like I used to be. I don't follow AEW. I don't follow WWE. I can remember when it was WWF. I used to watch it all the time, WCW, all that stuff. So I'm very old. Yes, Tony, thank you very much. I'm very old. Thank you, Emma. I'm very old. That's how far I go back. I posted when the news broke. I said, "Wow, shocking! The guy who pretended to be an a-hole for 30 years ended up being a real life a-hole, and it's actually closer to 40 years." So, I mean, it's not the allegations are not shocking. It's the fact that he thought that a $3 million payout was somehow going to escape the board of governors or whatever they want to do, and all of that stuff. And Vince, of course, couldn't help himself because same as he did with the XFL the first time, if you watch it, he was supposed to be hands off and he's got up midfield, welcome to the XFL and all this stuff. He just can't help himself. And it's really frustrating because you go through the litany of things that the WWE has done and professional wrestling in general, the way that a talent has been abused, discarded, stuff like this. It's really, really frustrating. Now, I know Stephanie is now the interim CEO or full-time, whatever she is. We know that her and Triple H are obviously married together, attached at the hip. Shane left for AEW. Do you think that had anything to do with this? Do you think that Shane was like, listen, there's drawing the line and there's like crossing the line. And to me, Shane was somebody, and again, I could be totally off base with this. Shane was somebody who appreciated the business. Obviously, when he went out there and wrestled, he wasn't jacked up on steroids like his dad. He was just a dude who was pretty athletic for not being a professional wrestler and went and did crazy stage dives and things of this sort. But I wonder if he just looked at it and said, Dad, like, we run a multi-billion-dollar business. What are you doing? Because it never seemed that Shane bought in. I don't want to say bought into. It never seemed like Shane got sucked into the storytelling side like Stephanie would do. She got married to Edge or got married to Test or whatever, and and then Triple H and all the jokes and stuff. And Shane was more just kind of the dude. And I do wonder if Shane's leaving had anything to do with the allegations coming down the coming down the pike. But to me, Vince McMahon is the same person he was in the 80s, the 90s, the early 2000s, and obviously into the 2020s. He is a creep billionaire who has accumulated his fortune on the backs of people who were vastly more talented than him. And unfortunately, he was the boss. And I'm not saying that he didn't do anything himself. It's just really frustrating to see this and people like pretending it's that feigning shock. Like, oh my God, I can't believe Vince McMahon did this. Like, really? You're really shocked? Like, the guy's a jerk. And not a jerk as in like, hey, he cut me off. Kind of like, hey, he just ran over an old lady and drove off. Like, he's that kind of jerk.
Yeah. And honestly, I don't think it's people who are wrestling fans that are saying that they're shocked. I think it's just more of the casual fan. Like, they know WWE exists. They know who Vince McMahon is, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, I think it is the end of him being on TV. This is just kind of his final like goodbye. Because we've seen with WWE, they'll write off a character for a long time. Then we may or may not ever see them again. Or they'll leave storylines just unfinished in case they ever want to bring them back, which they do. And excuse me, I will say for Shane, this is off the top of my head, I think this is like the third or fourth time he's actually left the company, gone to a competitor, and then eventually he comes back. Yeah. And that's kind of been a part of a storyline before. It's one of the few times they kind of break kayfabe. They'll actually bring real life stuff into it and whatnot. So to me, probably, and yeah, the fact that people are even shocked, it's like, you got to think he's probably one of the biggest villains in the WWE storyline ever. Look at who he had feuds with: Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, Hulk Hogan, The Undertaker, his own son, his daughter, his son-in-law, Triple H. Like, he's had feuds with everybody. Like, that's just part of it. Like, and like you said, the fact that you got to think he's able to play being a heel so well. Why should people ever be surprised that he's a dick in real life, for lack of better words? So yeah, I'm not really surprised that he's doing this. Again, we've seen it. He loves the attention. He loves to be able to do what he wants to do. Heck, look at COVID, like when it not ended, but they were able to have fans actually like back in like full stadiums. He literally just came out, welcome back, drops the mic and leaves. Like there is no reason for you to do that. You literally just felt like doing it.
He always has to have the last word. Damian wrote, Vince McMahon should have been off TV a long time ago. Vince McMahon equals Donald Sterling. I actually think he's worse than Donald Sterling because Donald Sterling was just a racist and cared about money. And I think with Vince, it goes further. I mean, again, it's hard to judge things before when almost everybody was doing it in the scope of 2022 and things of that sort. But if you look, the steroids of the 80s, the chair shots that were clearly an issue up to a few years ago, where guys, go watch any Mick Foley documentary and the stuff they talk about. It's kind of like when ESPN used to do the jacked up segments, and then all of a sudden, like, you can't find that footage anywhere on YouTube because like, oh yeah, we kind of probably shouldn't have been doing that with, and then denying that concussions were a big deal. So again, Vince has always played the villain. He plays the villain really well because in real life, he's a villain. Like it's was it Maya Angelou? When somebody tells you who they are, believe them. Vince told you he was the villain. He wasn't the savior. How many storylines has Vince done? 1,000 storylines. How many times was he the villain? 990. 10 times he was the savior. Like, come on. Like, that's not on accident.
Yeah. And who's worse, Vince McMahon or Dan Snyder? I would say Dan, because Vince, like, at least Vince was always up front. I'm not letting go. Like, I'm never going to be hands off. I'm never going, like, because that's been a topic of discussion, probably the last, 5-10 years is when is Vince going to let, Triple H and Stephanie, run the company? Are they even the ones to do it? And last couple of years, Vince was like, no, actually, I don't think I'm going to have them run it. I'm just going to keep running it till I'm dead, basically. Like to me, Dan is worse. Because of all the sexual assault allegations, you have the team name as a whole that has been fought against since basically the inception of Washington under their previous name and whatnot. Then you have the whole John Gruden thing and the emails. So it's like everybody for the most part knows that WWE is fake. So it's like, okay, to a point, they know that this is acting. Like, they're going to say stuff that's edgy. They're going to say stuff that is supposed to get a reaction. It's supposed to piss you off. Like Dan was doing it behind the scenes that, bless you, up until really social media, we wouldn't have known about. If we didn't have social media, we would have never known this about Washington unless it just happened to leak out like the news or newspaper. And Emma, for your dad's time period when it came out on stone tablets, then he would learn about Washington back in the day. But that was when he used to ride like a pterodactyl to school and whatnot. But that was a long time ago.
So mean to me, so mean.
I love her look. Like,
listen, any chance to make fun of her dad, that's she basks in it. She's happy. No, again, like the whole Vince stuff. But yeah, Vince should absolutely be off TV. He shouldn't have been on SmackDown. He shouldn't have been on Raw. He just needs to go away, just for good.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Okay, so we'll move on to this next one. This one will probably be a little bit quicker, just because I know everybody and their brother has commented and done this. So obviously, Steph had an amazing performance throughout the NBA playoffs. It's his fourth chip. He finally got his second Finals MVP.
No, his first.
Oh, is his first?
His first, yep.
Is it?
Andre Iguodala to Kevin Durant, and now Steph Curry.
Yeah, okay. So now, is he considered worthy enough to be in, the NBA's top time all 10? I know a few people, kind of like Lamar. It's not really, he's like 1 through 5. It's like 6 through 12. It's like those last few that you're like, he's maybe like right here, either in or out, can go either way. Where would you rank him on the all-time greats?
That's really tough. And I'm going to preface this by saying I've mentioned it on the show before, and I've mentioned it on my pod. I'm a Hall of Fame snob. I think the Hall of Fames are too big and too bloated. I think sometimes we let people in. Like, the Hall of Fame is supposed to be a sacred place. And I think when you talk about a top 10 list, it should also be a sacred place. It should be for those who not only accomplish things on the court, but off the court, who, when you think of the history of the game, they're players that automatically pop in your head. So for me, there's a few easy ones. Obviously, Jordan, LeBron, Magic, Kareem, Bird, Russell, Wilt Chamberlain, players like that. That's when it starts to get a little tricky, because then you're getting, to me, Tim Duncan's another one who's a lock, like he's just in. Then you get into players like Shaquille O'Neal and Kobe Bryant and Steph Curry and maybe Kevin Durant and things of this sort. I don't like to put people in the top 10s while they're still playing, unless it's just boom, they're automatic top 10. Tom Brady, clearly a top 10 quarterback. LeBron James, whatever you think of him, clearly a top 10 player all time. Like he's close, he's almost my age. Like he's fine. You can put him in the top 10 if you choose to. Steph, well, he is. He's going to be 38. I'm 40. He's close. So I know
so you were around when basketball was first incepted, right? Like when they first made basketball.
I hate you. I hate you so much. If your face wasn't so gorgeous, I'd hang up right now. But no, it's me personally. I'm not going to put Steph Curry in the top 10 right now, just because. Could he have another 4, 5, 6 years of like averaging 28 to 35 minutes a game and racking up points? Yeah. Let me see what happens. Like he's not done yet. So again, like I see some people have like Giannis as like a top 12 player. I love Giannis. Giannis isn't even 30. Like, let's just calm down a little bit. We're always in such a hurry to solidify these top 10 lists when they're clearly not done. What happens if Kevin Durant wins the next 2 titles and next 2 league MVPs? All of a sudden, you're going to push Steph back out of the top 10 because here comes Kevin Durant. Like, is he an all-time great player? Yes. Damian has him, top 15, not 10 yet. That's fine. I mean, if you want to argue that, that's fine. I have kind of a list in my head, but I don't want to go too far. But like, you have to do a lot of things to crack the top 10 for me. You just have to be, again, the 3-point game. Like you said, it's all been talked about. I don't want to hash it too much. But to me, is he an all-time top 10 player? No, not currently. And again, to me, when you make these lists, it's all encompassing. It's on the court. It's off the court. If there's social stuff, like to me, Bill Russell's a top 5 player. Now, you could say in today's game, he's not even a bench player. Whatever. He didn't play in today's game. He played before. But what he did as the – physics wasn't invented yet when he was born. Yeah, thanks a lot. That's a good one. But, again, like first player coach, first black head coach, there's so many great accomplishments, and all this. So I think that does take into account when you're coming up with these lists. Steph Curry with his 3-point shot, that'll be in the first paragraph of his obituary. Like basically revolutionized the game. Even though Reggie Miller was a great 3-point shooter, even though Ray Allen was a great 3-point shooter, Steph did it at another level. And that's fine. But I'm in no hurry to, as Tony would say, carve out my stone tablet with my top 10 and bury it in the ground like a time capsule until his career is over.
Okay. So I'm gonna go a little bit opposite. I'm gonna say he's right at 10, and here's the reason why I say that. We've talked about LeBron. LeBron's basically played since basketball was even thought of. Joe actually thought about basketball back in the 1700s, and then LeBron actually started playing about 10 years later. So people talk about LeBron is basically his own dynasty because in about to be year 20, he's got 4 rings. Steph has done that in basically 2/3 of the time, because Steph has now been in the league 13 years.
Mm-hmm.
LeBron's been in the league for almost 20, so there's 7-year difference. Steph has 4, Bron has 4. Steph has done it with 1 team. Bron has done it with 4 teams. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people will say, well, it's a lot for LeBron to be able to go to different teams, be able to put different teams together and win championships. My counter to that is it's never sustained success. The only place that they ever had sustained success with winning and going to multiple championships was Miami. And that's only because Dwayne was already there. They got Chris Bosh and they got LeBron. They bought into the system, and they did it. Like, Steph has been with Golden State from the beginning, from when they were not great. They got Clay, they got Draymond, they made it work. They win a championship. Then they're like, yeah, why not add KD too? He wants to join us. Why not? Win 2 more chips. You know, they get to another one. Everybody gets hurt to no end. They're down in the dumps for a couple years, and then they come back with the original crew, even with Iggy, and they win another chip. So to me, there's only ever a handful of players that have not only multiple rings, but multiple rings with the original team that they're with. Like, LeBron can't even say, like, yes, LeBron won a ring with the Cavaliers, but he didn't do it from the start. He had to leave, win a couple, then he came back and won one ring. Then he left again, and he left him in pieces. So, and I'm not the biggest LeBron supporter either. So, to me, yeah, I would put LeBron in the top 10. I wouldn't put him in top 5. Again, I know people are probably going to be like, "Well, why not? He's got all these titles, he's scoring, he's got 4 rings, he's multiple league MVP." Who cares? Who cares? You haven't, yes, you've done all of this, but you have not revolutionized. You haven't done enough to me to warrant you being better than Jordan. You haven't done enough. Heck, like you said, you could put Bill Russell at top 5 because he just has 11 rings. No matter what people want to say, oh well, it was a different era. Okay, it was a different era when Jordan played too, and he got 6.
No.
And I know a lot of people. And again, there is a narrative. It's like Jordan only ever played 6 seasons. He never lost, and that's it. No. Jordan lost. Jordan was human. LeBron has won. LeBron has lost. They're human. LeBron has done so much more to only come up short and to only have 4 rings. Like, Steph continues to do what he needs to do. He's willing to personally sacrifice. Because think about it. 2 years ago, Steph could have left it anytime he wanted to. Nobody would have batted an eye. They'd been like, okay, Steph, you can leave. That's fine. No one cares. Well, Golden State would care, and whoever he would go to, because he could have said, hey, I want money and I want to potentially chase a ring. I don't want to be here with Golden State and just be in the dumps. No, He stayed there and he stuck through it. Would Bron do that in that situation? No.
It's hard to argue. No. I want to address what Damian asked. Is Kerr top 5 in coaching? I think it's really complicated all the time because I'm sure his winning percentage is ranked top 5. But if you look at the history of the league, you have like Lenny Wilkins, Larry Brown, Red Auerbach, obviously Phil Jackson and Pat Riley and Bill Russell and all these great coaches. So I mean, again, I'll say it same as I said for Steph Curry in my top 10. I'd like to wait and see what his career is over. But Steve Kerr is absolutely making an argument. And I this is the first time I'm ever saying this, so just buckle in. By the time he's all done, he might have the most successful NBA career of any person ever.
Yeah.
Now, that includes, I just lost him. The logo, Jerry West, who's been an executive with the Lakers and the Clippers and all this, and the logo and, all this other stuff and all this. But I'm saying Steve Kerr, multiple titles, 5 titles as a player, 4 titles as a head coach. Let's not forget, he was also a really good executive for the Suns, and his career is not over. I'm just saying, by the time that he's done, whether it's announcing, which again, he was really good at, but if you want to go to announcing, coaching, all this. I mean, Pat Riley, I think a lot of people would argue Pat Riley, Red Auerbach, probably 1 and 2, whichever order you want to put them in, because Riley was obviously, a TV guy, and then a coach, and obviously with Miami, he's built teams and won titles and stuff. But I think when Steve Kerr is done, he might have a shot at being the most successful NBA person ever, which is a heck of a thing when you think about it. But again, top 5 coaching right now, I'm good holding off.
Yeah, no, I kind of agree. It's kind of the same as Steph and LeBron. Once they're finished, then you can probably make that argument. Because again, Ray actually pointed this out the other day on on the show that they did like a career average analysis of where they think the players are going to stop. I think Clay is supposed to stop when he's like 34, 35. Steph at like 39. Draymond at like 36. So you still have like another 4 or 5 years. They could win another. I would say 2 would be realistic. Another 5 in the next 5 years, 2 chips.
Sure. I mean, again, it's been talked about, but like they have Jonathan Kuminga from last year's draft class. They have James Wiseman from a couple years ago. So even if those players don't pan out, they're assets. You can trade. You can do all this. And Golden State has basically looked at it and said, we are going to do the one thing that almost no team in the NBA is going to do. We are going to pay. And we are going to pay whatever price it takes. We're going to pay, if the salary cap's 180, we're going to pay $300 million in luxury tax because titles mean everything. Titles don't go away. Money, you can always make more money. You can raise ticket prices. You can sell more concessions. You can invest, whatever you want to do. Titles live forever. So what those people, Bob Myers and the people who own the Warriors, what they're looking at right now is they're saying, we need to establish a legacy. With, again, this will be the last thing I say on this. In LeBron James's era, the Warriors have a chance to be the most memorable thing about it. And they know that. And that matters to them. And it doesn't matter to every team and every owner. And it clearly matters to those players as well.
Yeah. And I'll say this too. And this is where I could possibly make the argument for Steve Kerr being at least number 5 in coaching, because you got to think you have to have something there between winning championships, money, and coaching for all of these players to stay there. Like think about it. Once you kind of won the first 3 chips, everybody's injured, everybody's hurt. How many times do you think these Warriors players have been like, man, I want to go somewhere else. Man, I want to do something different. And they haven't. Steph didn't. Clay is hurt, so Clay's probably not going to go anywhere. Draymond has been in and out. Steve has even had to sit Draymond because of his mouth, because of doing stuff on the court. Like Steve has come to Draymond and said, "Look, I don't care how good you are. I don't care what you do. You're sitting. I don't care." Like
Steve had his own health issues too.
Yeah,
Steve Kerr's had his own health issues where he could have walked away and said, "You know what? I'm good."
Yeah, and he didn't. So again, this is one of those. I kind of talked about it. People are talking about the cap for Golden State. Like you said, I could very easily see him, paying it. I could very easily see a lot of these guys, taking a pay cut. Because again, why not? They do, again, it's the Tom Brady thing. I don't need to make the most money. I want to win, and I want to win championships. That is the thing that LeBron cannot understand is you don't have to be the highest paid. You don't have to always just go get veteran superstars and hope that they work as role players. You work with what you got. You don't have to be the head coach. Let your head coach do his thing like the Warriors do. They let Steve do his thing. But in return, Steve is also like, hey, y'all are the players. You do the thing. This is our system. This is what we're going to do. And like you said, they've gotten great young players. They got Kuminga. They got Wiggins. Heck, they took a chance on Jordan Poole. Mm-hmm. And they said, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to utilize you. And if you do everything correctly, we're probably going to win a chip. And lo and behold, Jordan Poole won a chip. I could see some of them being like, hey, I've bought into this. I want to win again. Let's do it. So, yeah, I could very easily see it. All right, so we'll move on to our last topic and probably what we call our spiciest of topics. And that is the latest in the reality TV series that is Deshaun Watson's life. So, it was obviously released, was it yesterday or day before yesterday, that 20 of the civil cases were settled outside of court. Now there is 4 remaining. Because at one point it was, up to 26?
It was up to 24. For a while it was 22, and then 2 more came on just a few weeks ago, and then it was 24, and 20 have settled, leaving 4 original complaining witnesses left who have not taken settlements.
Yeah. So now you're down to 4. So, I almost hate to ask it like this, but I can't think of a better way to word it. And again, I don't want to sugarcoat it. I want to be realistic about it. Mm-hmm. Does this change your perception of Deshaun? And do you think this changes now his potential for being suspended? Because the way I kind of look at it is, you had 24 at one point, and if all 24 push through, there's probably a really, really, really heavy chance that Goodell says, I have to like indefinitely suspend you. You are never playing another down in the NFL. And whatever happens after that happens. We've talked about it. Should the Texans be punished? Should the Browns be punished? Draft picks taken away, salary paid but not paid, et cetera, et cetera. Now he's down to 4.
Mm-hmm.
Now, again, do you think Goodell kind of sticks to his same guns because, well, at one point you were accused 24 times, you settled 20, but again, you still have this negative limelight on you, on the NFL, on Roger Goodell, who already had to, testify in front of Congress earlier, who, in case people don't know, the congressional hearing subpoenaed for Dan Snyder to testify, I think next week, if I remember right.
They're trying to get him in for next week, I believe, in the next 2 weeks, yeah.
Yeah, so Dan is going to have to come testify to everything that has happened. So do you think this changes Deshaun's suspension? Because to me, I could see Goodell being like, yes, it's wrong, but now that you only have 4, maybe only suspend you for the year because Deshaun's a moneymaker. Deshaun's talented. He's a big name that, again, like we talked about, Goodell's not exactly opposed to giving the fans the middle finger. He doesn't care. He cares about what's going to generate the most money, the most views, and the most revenue because obviously he gets a good chunk of that as well. Mm-hmm. So do you think this changes or do you think this stays the same?
I think it changes absolutely nothing, and it shouldn't. There was 24 civil suits filed as of the last count before this was settled. These 20 women did not rescind their statements.
Allegations, yeah.
They didn't rescind the allegations. They didn't rescind and say, you know what, we're good. We talked about, a couple weeks ago, you and I, episode that was probably our most viewed, I think. We talked about this with the New York Times reporting where it was 66 women interviewed and possibly up to 100 of these allegations. These are the women who brought forth civil charges.
Mm-hmm.
So Deshaun Watson, number one, could have and probably should have paid these women if that's what was going to happen months ago. Why it didn't happen? You'd have to ask him and his legal team. That's their discussion. I want to address a few things that the morning show talked about this morning because I did tune in and it was a pretty crowded show. I did hop on for a second, even though Pride said that I really didn't bring anything to the conversation about Article 46. But Mike Hughes brought up a good point. Just because somebody settles doesn't mean that they didn't do it. Like sometimes you use money to make things go away. Sometimes you use money because you did something. Like it's when you file a civil suit, basically what you're saying is the burden of proof is harder in criminal court as opposed to civil court. So I know I'm probably not going to be able to take him to a jury because there's no physical evidence. It's a he said, she said, and it is a gray area. So I'm going to rack up lawyers' fees and probably not get criminal justice. But if I civilly sue somebody and I show that what they did, rose to the level of punitive damages or whatever they determine, then I can at least get something. That's my form of justice. And if you want a perfect example, go back to O.J. Simpson. O.J. Simpson was found not guilty by a jury of his peers. Whether you think that he did it or that he didn't do it, in a criminal proceeding, he was found not guilty. The families of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman sued him in civil court, and they found him guilty, therefore owing them tens of millions of dollars to the families. So if you want a basis for this, look at that. Now, back to Deshaun Watson with the 20. Excuse me, and the 4 left. Roger Goodell, as I said before, needs to get this right. And I think has a pretty good opportunity to get this right. It's already being leaked that Deshaun Watson is probably more than likely suspended for the year. Hold on. Excuse me. Sorry, I don't want to cough into the microphone. But anyway, he's probably going to get suspended for the year, which to me is the starting point. I think that Deshaun Watson, the Texans, and the Browns could not have handled this any worse. Now, I gave a lot of benefit of the doubt to the Texans last year. That was different. Not knowing the information.
Mm-hmm.
The trade, fine. You need him out, you get him out, fine. But Cleveland and Deshaun have handled this terribly. There's no way I put him in front of microphones. Again, he was just on last week. I've never disrespected a woman. I'm sorry that this hurt people in the community and all this. Like, if you didn't do anything wrong, what are you apologizing for? That's one thing. Number two, money cannot buy you happiness. And to me, it's not going to buy Deshaun Watson ease of mind either, because as they spoke on the morning show, this is something that will always stay with him. And again, he's not going to jail unless all of a sudden there's like video or something. Like, he's not going to jail. Like that get that out of your mind. This is not it. In the court of public perception, in the court of the NFL fan perception, Deshaun Watson is damaged goods. And the only reason that he will possibly have a career as opposed to Ray Rice is because of the position he plays, of the talent that he has, and basically our willingness to forgive people that we kind of used to like. Nobody really had an opinion on Ray Rice. If you weren't a Baltimore fan, unless you had him in fantasy, most people didn't care about Ray Rice. He was a running back on the Ravens. Cool, whatever. But you knew him once that video came out. You knew him once all that information came out, and he was closer to 30. His career was over, and the team wouldn't touch him. Deshaun Watson, there's a reason multiple teams were lining up with multiple first-round picks to trade for him. It's because of his age and his talent. And that will supersede everything. I think Deshaun Watson will be suspended for at least a year under, the commissioner's exemption, however he wants to do it. I personally think that Cleveland should be docked some picks and fined. And I actually hope that Roger Goodell sits down and doesn't do an interview, but does an open press availability with questions when all this punishment comes down, instead of just a cookie cutter statement like he gave today to the House committee, the House subcommittee hearing, with Dan Snyder and the allegations, because this is serious business. This is a time for adults to sit down and make tough decisions and talk about it. The league does a very poor job in deciding something and then further explaining it. They put out a memo and they're just like, we're good. Read this and that's all. It's like, no, excuse me. We actually have questions. So please go ahead, sir.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And again, I think Goodell still will. I honestly believe he's going to do exactly like what he did today when they asked him, what is this allegations with Washington? He's like, I don't have any control over firing Dan Snyder. Yeah, you have a little bit. Now, don't get me wrong. I know it's basically a vote by committee, and they're probably going to vote Danny out. Because he's being a pain and because he's bringing all this negative limelight to them. I have always been a big anti-Goodell person. He has dropped the ball multiple times. He's a crappy owner, not crappy owner. He's a crappy commissioner. We've seen him be so inconsistent with some of these punishments. Like the only thing that he did right was, Ray Rice did this. Indefinitely suspended. That's it. That's your one that you ever did. The whole Adrian Peterson thing with his kid. Okay. Yeah, what? Did AP even get suspended for that or no?
Yeah, I think he
did. He?
Games, I want to say. Well, let's not forget the Ray Rice situation. The reason it's messed up is because originally he was suspended for 2 games before the video got released.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
He missed those 2 games, and then TMZ acquired the video, published the video, and the NFL tried to suspend him again, which you're not allowed to do. And that is why Ray Rice was suing the league and saying, like, no, you can't suspend me again. Now, Baltimore ended up not playing him and all this, but Goodell went back and basically said, oh, we kind of screwed up. We need to suspend him longer. And to Ray Rice's credit and the Players Association, they're like, no, you screwed up the first time. If you'd have given him 4 games, 6 games, 8 games, whatever, you gave him 2. You can't change it after that.
Yeah. And again, he's fumbled before. He's screwed up. The AP thing, it was like 2 games. Kareem Hunt, he got 8, if I remember right. Zeke got 6 games just for allegations that were all dropped. Like, hell, Brady got 4 because of Deflategate. Like, and obviously, with at least Brady's, there was rules that they looked into. What's like the maximum or minimum you can give for something like that?
Don't get me started, but yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those. Again, he got suspended. I know, obviously, a lot of people who don't like Tom Brady, who aren't Patriots fans, wanted to see him potentially suspended for longer. But again, he did serve a punishment, whether you like it or not. He did, and yeah, to me, I could very easily see Goodell being like, you know what, we'll do it for a year, and then we'll review. It's like, no, Roger. How about you do everybody a favor, go away, step down. You obviously can't do this anymore. You've been commissioner now for over 10 years. Everybody hates you because you're hot guard. Like, you know what it's kind of like? It's kind of like Star Wars with like Chancellor Palpatine. It's like, he is. It's like, dude, you suck. Like, you don't do anything good. You're just a pain in the ass for no reason. You don't do your job. You're just there. You're like, oh, I'm Roger Goodell. I get booed at the NFL draft. No one cares. Yeah, go away. No one cares. Go away.
People like to be the villains. They want to be the heroes. Being a hero is hard because you have expectations. Being a villain is easy because you can just bask in it. Like, and if you don't like it, then it turns you angry, and then you're more of a villain. Like, it's just the way it is. To me, this will be, again, my last thing that I say on this. If I'm Roger Goodell, this is what I do. I hold a press conference at the NFL head offices, and I dole out the punishment. And I say, Deshaun Watson, quarterback of the Cleveland Browns, has been indefinitely suspended from the NFL for a minimum of 1 year. He can apply for reinstatement 365 days from now. We are launching an investigation into the Cleveland Browns organization along with the Houston Texans organization in what they knew and to better improve our standing, not only in the league, but in society with women and other organizations. And I will no longer talk about Deshaun Watson for the year. He is no longer a part of the NFL. He is not allowed around team activities. He is not currently a player in the NFL for at least the next 365 days, at which forth he can reapply. Like, he just needs to be very matter of fact and open up to questions. Goodell has to take the hard questions on this one. Who knew? When did they know? What are you going to do about it? You cannot stand behind a written statement on this. You cannot.
Oh yeah. Well, and he's going to, because Goodell's one that he doesn't do hard questions. He doesn't do it, and we saw it with the whole Washington situation. Not my circus, not my monkeys. I don't want to deal with it. I'm just in charge. Like that to me, it's like the worst day. It's like, well, I can't do that. Well, this happened, and you're like, well, I'm just in charge. Yeah. So you knew this was happening, or you found out about it, and you've done nothing.
Nothing. Yeah.
You did nothing. Like, you can't be there. Well, I'm just the boss. Yeah. Everything happens under your watch. You are responsible. If the ship sinks, you are the captain. You not only go down with the ship, but then you have to explain why did the ship sink under you being in charge. And yeah, like you said, that's what he should do. Is he going to do it? Probably not.
The NCAA loves to use the term lack of institutional control.
Yes. And yeah, I just laugh more than anything. And it's sad because I don't really want to laugh at it. But again, and I know we don't always talk about it all the time, but it's like South Park kind of explained it the best. Goodell is just like a robot that everybody plugs in. He gives like these just generic answers, and then they unplug him and they walk away, and then he's just done. Like that. That's all they do. Like that epitomizes who Roger Goodell is. But that is about it, though. Joe, I appreciate you being on. Of course, thank Emma for being able to join us as well.
She was getting pretty tired. It was bedtime.
I figured. Well, that she's probably bored. She's like, I don't want to listen to two old guys talk about sports that I don't care about. No one cares. You guys are all cap. You guys are all cap.
Oh my. Well, thank you to Damien and everybody who commented. That was
yeah.
It's always nice when people get involved and watch and ask questions. So thank you for that.
Definitely appreciate it. Thank y'all to everybody who did watch. Like Joe said, unfortunately, we did not have Amon on this episode. He had a baby cousin game he had to go to. Just
Guy
missed his
does
first
one
episode.
international cricket tournament. His head's too big for us. What are we gonna
I
do?
know he's better than us now. We're just the lowly peasants. We're not as cool as he is. I mean, I get it. I'm right there with him. I get it. But thank you all to everybody that watched, though. We appreciate it. Please like, share, subscribe. Let us know. You can always interact with us in the comments. We will always try to get to as many comments as we can. Answer any questions that you guys have. We love interacting with all of y'all. Please check Joe out on his podcast, Out of Bounds with a Z, whenever it comes back on the air. I know, like he said, his podcast partner has been kind of out of action here for a little bit, but Joe sometimes will substitute, somebody like Amon is usually his first choice. I'm like the 7th round Mr. Irrelevant draft pick, so I get picked second. Or you can catch me on, of course, here every Wednesday night, or you can catch me on the night show, which been a little bit inconsistent here of lately. Since I just had a birthday, she just turned 25, so wish her a happy birthday. But you can usually catch me on there. And of course, Joe and I always hop on just about every single show that ASAP has. We have great shows, by the way. Again, please let us know how we do. We're continuing to grow, continuing to do great things. And nonetheless, though, thank you all. It's been an amazing show. And we will be back next week with great content. Hopefully I'm on this time. If he can fit us into his busy celebrity lifestyle schedule now that he is a big star. Just kidding. We love you, Amon. We really do. But we know that we're not on your level. We'll get there, though. We'll get there one day. But other than that, everybody have a good night. Peace.